It's time for Fresh Oil with singer-songwriter and pastor Keith Manley, a program designed to minister the gospel of God's grace and to bring fresh oil to the brokenhearted. And now, with today's program, Pastor Keith Manley.
Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you joined me today for Fresh Oil. My name is Keith Manley, and we're in a series right now that I've entitled From the Pit to the Palace, the Joseph Journey. An amazing story of a young man in the Old Testament who went from a dream to seeing his vision fulfilled as a leader in the land of Egypt. Now, today we're entering what might be the most difficult season of Joseph's life, and perhaps the most relevant to many of you listening today. We've seen Joseph receive a dream from God. We've seen him betrayed by his own brothers and sold into slavery. And today we're going to see him falsely accused, unjustly thrown in prison, and he's seemingly forgotten by everyone, including God. And this is the episode for every one of you who feels stuck, for everyone who's been faithful, but you feel forgotten, for everyone who's doing the right thing, but you're getting the wrong results, for everyone who's wondering, God, do you see me? Do you remember me? Have you forgotten your promise? Today's message is called The Prison, Faithfulness in the Forgotten Season. And I promise you, by the end of this episode, you're going to have some hope again. You're going to understand that your forgotten season is actually a preparation season. Let's pick up from Joseph's story in Genesis 39, and he's been sold as a slave. Joseph enters in the house of Potiphar, who was an Egyptian official who was captain of Pharaoh's guard. And here's what's remarkable. Even as a slave, Joseph excelled. In Genesis 39, verse 2 through 4, this is what it says. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. And when his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. Now think about this, friend. Joseph had every reason to be bitter. He'd been betrayed by his brothers. He was sold as a slave, separated from his father, and stripped of his identity. But instead of becoming resentful, he became excellent. Instead of doing the minimum, he did the maximum. And God blessed him. Verse 5 said, from the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. Now Joseph rose to the top, and he became the manager of everything Potiphar owned. He had authority, responsibility, trust, and things were finally looking up, but then disaster struck. Genesis 39, verse 6 and 7 says, so Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Now Joseph was well-built and handsome, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, come to bed with me. Now Potiphar's wife tried to seduce Joseph, and day after day she pursued him, and Joseph refused. Verses 8 and 9 says, but he refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. I bet that made her mad. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? Notice Joseph's reasoning. He didn't say, I can't do this because I'll get caught. He said, how can I sin against God? His integrity, it wasn't based on consequences. It was based on conviction. His morality was not situational, it was foundational. He lived by it. But Potiphar's wife didn't give up. Verse 10 said, and though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. Day after day, this wasn't a one-time temptation. Get this, friend. This went on day after day. It was persistent, relentless pressure from Potiphar's wife, and Joseph kept saying no. And then one day, she grabbed his cloak and demanded he sleep with her. Joseph ran, leaving his cloak in her hands, and she used the cloak as evidence to falsely accuse him of attempted rape. Now, Genesis 39, verse 19 and 20 says, when his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me." He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. See, just like that, Joseph went from the top of Potiphar's household to the bottom of Pharaoh's prison. He did the right thing, and he got punished for it. He maintained his integrity, and he lost everything. He was falsely accused, friend, unjustly imprisoned, and the whole time he was completely innocent. Here's what makes this even more painful. Joseph was now in his second pit. First, his brothers threw him in a literal pit, and now he's in the prison pit. First, they stripped him of his robe, and now his cloak has been taken and used to condemn him. The pattern was repeating, and Joseph had to be wondering, God, where are you? I've been faithful. I've done the right thing, and my life keeps getting worse. What's happening? Now, here's where the story becomes incredibly relevant to many of you listening today, because Joseph spent years in that prison, not days, not weeks, not months. He spent years. Genesis 39:20 says he was put in prison, and chapter 41, verse 1 says, when 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh had a dream. That's at least 2 years in prison, and probably longer. Some scholars estimate Joseph was in prison from 10 to 12 years total. Think about that. A decade in prison for a crime he didn't commit. A decade of being forgotten, a decade of waiting to be vindicated, and it never came. This is what I call the forgotten season, and many of you are in one of those right now. You've been doing the right thing, but nothing is changing. You've been faithful, but no one notices. You're serving God, but you feel invisible. You're believing God's promises, but they seem further away than ever. Maybe you feel forgotten today by people, forgotten by opportunities, and if you're honest, you probably feel like God has forgot you as well. But here's what Joseph's story teaches us, friend. The forgotten season is actually the formation season. God hasn't forgotten you. He's preparing you for something better. Let me show you what happened in Joseph's prison season. Joseph remained faithful even when no one was watching. Genesis 39, verse 21 through 23 says this, "But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison." Now, you getting this? No matter where this guy goes, he's put in charge. He prospers. And he was made responsible for all that was done there. And the warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with him and gave him success in whatever he did. Even in prison, Joseph excelled. Even when he had every excuse to be bitter, to give up, and do the minimum, he gave his best. And this is crucial, friend, because your character, it's revealed not when people are watching, but when no one is watching. Your integrity is tested not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Joseph could have said, "I'm innocent. I shouldn't even be here. I'm not going to cooperate. God has forgotten me. Why should I keep serving him? I did the right thing, and I got punished. From now on, I'm looking out for myself." But he didn't, friend. He remained faithful. He served excellently, and he maintained his integrity. And God saw it. Even when no one else did, God saw it. Now, Joseph used his gifts, even in limiting circumstances. In prison, Joseph met 2 of Pharaoh's officials, the cupbearer and the baker. And they both had been in prison for offending the king. And one night, they both had dreams that troubled them. Genesis chapter 40, verse 6 tells the story. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there's no one to interpret them." And then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." Notice what Joseph did. He didn't say, "I've got my own problems. Figure this out for yourself." He noticed their pain, and he cared about their struggles, so he offered to help. And he used his gift, the gift of interpreting dreams, even though he was in prison. He didn't wait until he was free to use his gifts. He didn't wait until the circumstances were perfect or just right. He used what God gave him right where he was. Now, this is a powerful principle. Don't wait for the perfect platform to use your gifts. Use them where you are, even if it's in prison. Your current limitations don't disqualify your gifts, friend. Your difficult circumstances, they don't negate your calling. Use what God gave you right now, right where you are. Now, Joseph interpreted the cupbearer's dream correctly. He would be restored to his position in 3 days. And Joseph made one request. He said in chapter 40, verse 14, "But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon." And Joseph asked for help. He asked to be remembered. He asked for justice. And the cupbearer was restored, just as Joseph predicted. But then Genesis 40, verse 23 says, "The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him." Friend, he forgot him. For 2 more years, Joseph waited. For 2 more years, he hoped. For 2 more years, he wondered if anyone would ever remember him. Proverbs 13 and verse 12, it says, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life." Hope deferred. That's exactly what Joseph is experiencing at this moment. That's what many of you are experiencing right now. You thought the breakthrough was coming. You thought this was finally your moment, but the door closed. The opportunity passed. The person forgot, and you're still waiting. Friend, this is one of the hardest tests of faith. Continuing to believe when hope is deferred or delayed, when it seems like you've been forgotten. Now, let me tell you what God's doing in your prison season. God is developing your character. See, Joseph entered Potiphar's house as a 17-year-old boy with a dream and a lot of immaturity. But he was favored. He was also arrogant. He had a vision, but he lacked wisdom. And the prison refined him. It humbled him. It taught him patience and perseverance. God's more interested in your character, friend, than he is your comfort. Secondly, God is deepening your dependence on him. When Joseph was in Potiphar's house, he had status, authority, and resources. But in prison, he had nothing. No connections, no influence, no way out. And then God is also protecting you from premature promotion. Joseph wasn't ready at 17 to rule Egypt. He needed to be tested, refined, and matured. Now, friend, in closing today, if you're in a forgotten season right now, I want you to know God hasn't forgotten you. He sees you. He's with you, and he's preparing you for something greater than you could even imagine. Now, tomorrow on Fresh Oil, we're going to be taking a look at what I call the promotion, when God suddenly elevates you, and you're going to see how Joseph went from prison to palace in 1 day. And you're going to learn how to steward those sudden promotions. You don't want to miss it. Until then, my friend, remember, the forgotten season, it's the formation season. God is preparing you, so stay faithful. Walk in grace. He loves you. He really does.
What does it look like to give your life not to fame, but to faithfulness? In I Wish You Jesus, author Keith Manley tells the powerful, deeply human story of Scott Wesley Brown, one of the most influential voices in contemporary Christian music, whose legacy has always pointed beyond the stage and toward the Savior. From humble beginnings and early musical stirrings, through decades of songwriting, global ministry, and personal sacrifice, this biography traces the journey of a man who chose obedience over applause and mission over spotlight. Brown's songs shaped a generation of worshipers, but his greatest message was never confined to lyrics. It was lived out through faith.
Check out my new book, I Wish You Jesus, The Life and Music of Scott Wesley Brown. It's available now on Amazon in paperback, hardcover, or the Kindle ebook edition.
Thanks for joining us today for Fresh Oil with Pastor Keith Manley. Fresh Oil is an outreach of Grace Family Church in Rockford, Illinois, and can be heard each weekday at this same time. You can reach us online at weneedgod.com. Until next time, remember, God's love for you is unconditional, and He makes His mercies new every morning.